A new book from Callaway about Bob Dylan released this month called Mixing Up the Medicine. It's a compendium of Bob Dylan's life, his songs, his records, the sheer volume of documents he's produced. And in this video, we'll cover 5 surprising things about mixing up the medicine and why you should check out this new book. I'm Mitch Bradford. I'm a singer-songwriter with over 1 million streams on Spotify. Please hit the follow button on this YouTube channel so we can continue to create great songwriting content for you. Thank you so much. Now, on to the book. Number 1 most surprising thing about mixing up the medicine is the size. This book is huge. It has to be around 600 pages and covers the entirety of Bob Dylan's life and work. It begins with Bob Dylan's early albums like Bob Dylan and the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, and ends with later works like Love and Theft and Rough and Rowdy Ways. Moreover, it explores Dylan's other artistic efforts like his paintings in the Endless Highway series, books like Tarantula and Chronicles, and his iron sculptures. The size, I think, is reflective of the amount of work that Dylan has produced. He's written over 600 songs, he's written 3 books, over 180 paintings, and countless iron sculptures. Maybe 50, I couldn't find an exact count online. But the size is also reflective of all the things you can talk about when it comes to Bob Dylan. It's more than just the songs, it's the lyrics, the poetry, the man, the influences, the image, the impact on culture. It's everything. So if you're looking for a big book about Bob Dylan, this book has you covered. It is huge. Number 2 most surprising thing about mixing up the medicine, the photos. Lots and lots of photos of Bob Dylan, photos of him playing guitar, photos of him hanging out with Mark Knopfler, photos of him hanging out with his band at Muscle Shoals, photos of him at the March on Washington, photos of him at the studio sessions, photos of him doing album release promotion, photos of him at the sessions for We Are the World. We often think of Bob Dylan as somebody who shies away from the camera, but this book makes the argument that there are plenty of Bob Dylan photographs floating around. It's also fascinating to think about how Dylan's image informs the lyrics. In the early years, he used this folk singer image to ground his traditional and political songs in a personal history. Now that personal history may have been created and made up, but this tough character that Dylan created made his songs feel perceptive and grounded and hard-won. Later, Dylan used this kind of effete image to underscore his separation from the folk music and underline the ground he was breaking in rock and roll. In later years, Bob Dylan appears as kind of a Civil War poet to deal with these larger, more universal themes and sometimes dark themes of love, death, memory, class, in songs like Working Man Blues No. 2 and Mississippi. All in all, this book is clear that Bob Dylan is not shy about being in front of the camera. Number 3 most surprising thing about mixing up the medicine, the lyrics. This book is fantastic because you get a sense of Bob Dylan, the writer. Moreover, you understand that the foundation of Dylan's songs and all of his work are the lyrics. We see lots of drafts of manuscripts, handwritten lyrics on hotel stationery, typed out lyric sheets, lots of crossouts and rewrites and underlines and edits and new words, handwritten lyric rewrites of Thunder on the Mountain on the Mark in New York on hotel stationery, lyric rewrites of Tempest at the Holiday Inn in Skopje in Macedonia. Hope I pronounced that right. And the book eliminates that Bob Dylan's writing process is often done by hand, often done on hotel stationery in the towns and cities where he's playing a gig, and often done with a fair amount of editing, second guessing, struggling to find the right word. We really see Bob Dylan, the writer, the editor, the literary master. But through the hotel stationery, we also see Bob Dylan, the performer, the traveler, the man committed to his art through the traveling roadshow. One of the things I find myself doing is Googling all the hotels where the lyrics are written and just checking out all the great places, cool places that Dylan has traveled and performed. From Chattanooga to China, he's played well over 3,000 shows, and this book demonstrates that when Bob Dylan is not playing, one imagines him holed up in the hotel somewhere, writing out some new lyrics on hotel stationery. This is definitely my favorite part of the book, just absolutely fantastic. Number 4 most surprising thing about mixing up the medicine, the contributors. There's a lot of great contributors in this book. Sean Wilentz, the academic at Princeton, who wrote Bob Dylan in America, Grail Marcus, the cultural critic who diagnosed the Basement Tapes in the old weird America, Michael Ondaatje, the screenwriter who wrote The English Patient, Alex Ross from The New Yorker who wrote the book Listen to This, and I haven't read all of Listen to This, just the Dylan chapter, but I know it's a classic in music criticism. Alison Moorer, the country singer famous for the song Send Down an Angel, and a great essay at the end by Douglas Brinkley, the academic, the historian at Rice. He's written books on Hurricane Katrina, President Richard Nixon, Hunter S. Thompson, and in the later years has done some of the best interviews with Dylan himself. There's a great quote from Douglas Brinkley on one of the book's final pages where he says, "But first and foremost, we must recognize that Dylan is a creative performing artist, committed to the American song bag, jazz ethics, and old-time sweatbox blues, as well as rock and roll theater. Overanalyzing him does his art a disservice. Dylan is an experience." It's on page 586 for all the nerds out there. And just an awesome quote that encapsulates the world that Bob Dylan creates, how he lives, how his songs fit into the wider conversation on American music. And although Douglas Brinkley is making the argument that Bob Dylan is more of an experience than an intellectual exercise, if you're looking for academic or critical study of Bob Dylan, this book has it. Great stuff. Number five, most surprising thing about Mixing Up the Medicine, notes from other stars. Notes from Jack White, notes from the folk singer Paul Brady, notes from Dr. Solomon Burke, notes from Billy Lee Riley, notes from President Bill Clinton, notes from President Jimmy Carter. One great note from Bruce Springsteen regarding Chronicles where he says, quote, "I just finished Chronicles. It knocked me out and made me happy. It's a beautiful book, and as usual, you've left the rest of us running to catch up. Congratulations and thanks, Bruce." Awesome quote from the boss on page 516. From these notes, you get the sense that Bob Dylan has a lot of friends in music. You get insight into his personal relationships, and you also understand that if you want to get in touch with Dylan, you probably got to write him a handwritten note. Moreover, you keenly see the impact Dylan has had on American songwriting. A lot of the notes are thanking him for writing the songs, thanking him for the inspiration, the folk singer who created the space for other musicians, other songwriters to be free to express ourselves as we wished in songwriting, in art, in music. These notes are also just fun. You can imagine yourself kind of sitting back one day on the couch, opening up the book and being surprised by a note from Paul McCartney to Dylan about how much he enjoyed a recent episode of Theme Time Radio Hour. You learn a lot about Bob, but you also learn a lot about the person writing him. And finally, it raises the question, did Bob Dylan ever write them back? All right, those are the 5 most surprising things about the new book from Callaway, Mixing Up the Medicine, about Bob Dylan's life and songs. What do you think? Have you checked out the new book? What did you find most surprising? What did you like about it? What were your takeaways? And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave us a comment, like, subscribe, and follow for more songwriting history. Cheers.
Respect, so if you got to go